"I get it, Joffrey, you hate the cold, but can you please just shut your damn mouth," said a teen with wild black hair and bright blue eyes that had a certain radiance to them. He wore a finely made black outfit with a golden-orange cape over his left shoulder. He was well-muscled and stood at around 5 foot and 8 inches. Strapped to the hip was a short sword around 2.5 feet in length. The blonde teen beside him scoffed at insult. "You can't speak to me like that, Naruto. I am your older brother and Crown Prince," Joffrey said back to his fellow prince. Naruto just laughed as he went further ahead of him. "Brother, I'll tell mother about this, Naruto. You know how she hates it when you pick on me," Joffrey said to his younger brother, who rolled his eyes and rode away from the fuming blonde. "Crown Prince of my ass," Naruto muttered to himself as his horse galloped far ahead of everyone else. Gods, he could already hear his father screaming his drunken head off as he charged towards Winterfell. On his own, with a large smile on his face, when he spotted a small boy looking at him from atop a tower. Looking around, he couldn't help but admire the scenery as he approached the castle. It was a profound change from being stuck in the Red Keep all day and night for the last 3 years. "Makes me miss Konoha sometimes." Despite being alive and well in Westeros for over 15 years, he always knew this wasn't his original home. At night, he would remember pieces of a life that he had never lived. When he looked in a mirror, he saw himself with golden hair and whiskers. He thought he was going mad at first, but then even his body began to change. As he grew older, he got stronger and much faster than any human before him. At an early age, he could best even veteran knights in a duel. His most amazing ability, however, was his magic, or his other self had called chakra. The more he dreamed, the more he remembered. By day, he was Naruto Baratheon II, son of King Robert Baratheon. At night, however, he relived the life of Naruto Uzumaki. He now remembered everything up until his death. Shortly after releasing his old world from an illusion, he had spent many days contemplating the nature of who he really was. In the end, he decided that he was both, and to not be bothered by it all. His experiences from both lives made up who he was now, both from his time as a prince and as a shinobi. "I only wish I got to keep all the powers I had back then," he muttered to himself. This body just wasn't made like his old one. The people of this world didn't typically have chakra systems when born and were naturally weaker. On top of that, he didn't have Kurama with him anymore since he was born. He had, however, reacquired most of his old jutsu, but a few still remained impossible due to the chakra needed to use them well. He was happy that he at least got to keep some of his powers. His horse's whine knocked him out of his thoughts as they arrived at Winterfell. Passing the gate, he was met with the entire Stark family. Prince Naruto, the eldest of the Stark men, sat bowing before him. "Gone ahead of the pact, I see." The Lord of Winterfell joked. Naruto laughed loudly. "I missed you, Ned," he said, bringing the older man into a hug, which was returned. "Sometimes I wish I could have stayed here instead of returning to King's Landing. Damn place is filled with assholes," Naruto claimed. As the two separate at a young age, he had been sent by his father and mother to learn from Ned, who fostered him. He had spent 8 years in the North from the age of 4 until he was 12. Naruto the Baratheon heard just before someone tackled him into a hug. It was in fact a young girl around 11 years old with brown hair tied back into a bun, wearing a dress fit for the North. "You're back, Arya. It's been forever. How's my favorite Stark?" he yelled as he returned the embrace. "Have gotten any better with a sword?" Naruto asked as the two separated from each other. Arya had known Naruto since she was born and spent the first 8 years of her life trailing him all over Winterfell. He had been the first person to show her how to use a sword, and even went as taught her the basics of swordplay and archery, much to her mother's dismay. "Careful, Naruto, my sister still hasn't even had her first blood yet," an older teenager said, stepping forward with a wide smirk on his face. Arya gave the older Stark a glare at the mention that she had yet to reach womanhood. "It's been a while, hasn't it, brother?" "That is as Rob," Naruto said as the two locked arms, grinning like their fathers. Before them, the two had become sworn brothers over Naruto's stay in North. "Are you and John ready to continue your losing streak against me, or have you each had enough already?" Naruto teased, knowing that his Herculean strength and speed easily overpowered anyone in single combat. Speaking of John, he started looking for the bastard who was behind the rest of the Starks. "Get over here, you idiot," Naruto said as he walked past everyone and pulled Jon Snow closer to everyone else. "Don't mind him too much," Theon said, smirking. "He's mourning the loss of his dear hair." The Greyjoy said, much to the amusement of the prince. "You never changed, you shorty," Rob responded, using Naruto's long-hated nickname. When he was younger, he was considered short, and that seemed to stick even after he grew up. The other Starks held back their laughter at the Baratheon's expense. Had this been anywhere else, the small folk would have been terrified for their lord's son who had insulted a prince, but after years of this they had grown accustomed to Naruto's informalities. "So is your brother every bit of a prick as we've heard?" he asked. Joffrey, Naruto asked, earning a nod. "Gods, no, I hate the brat sometimes. Seriously, I don't understand why mother coddles him so much. My little lion, she calls him blah to hell with both of them," he said, much to the amusement of everyone except for a certain redhead who had been smitten with his older brother, or rather the idea of his brother. Ned chuckled On how Naruto sound like a younger Robert at time. You shouldn't talk about Prince Joffrey like that, Naruto, she scolded, much to Naruto's annoyance. Just wait until you meet him, Sansa, Naruto said to the redhead grimly. She had the most distinct Tully features out of all of Ned's children, with striking auburn hair and blue eyes. After living with him for the last 3 years, I can tell you he is one of the most despicable people I have ever met. Don't waste yourself on him, Naruto said before hearing the rest of his group arriving. The entire Stark family lined up with the small folk behind them. Naruto stood beside them as the rest of his family rode into the area. He almost gagged at the look Sansa was giving his brother, a look he shared with Rob. Then came in his father, a large man with shoulder-length brown hair and a wild thick beard. The man walked up to the Starks and motioned for Ned to get up. You Grace, Ned said. You got fat, was the first thing he uttered. Naruto could barely contain his laughter as Ned gave Robert a confused look while looking at the much bigger king. His mother had sent him a glare from her spot as if telling him not to embarrass them. The moment was broken when the two old friends started to laugh with each other. Cat, he said as he hugged Caitlin. Your Grace, Cat greeted. 9 years I haven't seen you. Where the hell have you been? Robert asked his old friend as he turned his attention back to Eder. The two looked happy to see each other after such a long time. Naruto could tell that despite everything that happened between they two, they were still close to each other after so many years guarding the north for you. Your Grace, Winterfell is yours, the Lord Paramount of the North claimed. Where's the imp? Arya asked, much to his amusement and Sansa's annoyance. Robert moved down the line greeting the rest of the Starks before the queen made her way over to them. My queen, Ned said, kissing her hand while Cat repeated it and curtsied. Take me to the crypts, I want to pay my respect, Robert ordered, wanting to mourn his long-dead love. Naruto sighed, knowing that no matter how many years passed, Robert was and would always be in love with Ned's sister Lyanna, regardless what his mother would do. We've been writing for a month, my love. Surely the dead can wait, Cersei said, only for Robert to call for Ned, who apologized and left with the king. Where's the imp? Arya asked his mother, who looked rather annoyed between her husband leaving to mourn another woman and the mention of her less than lived brother Tyrion. He could help but be thankful to be back in the north with Robert and Ned. The two had just finished talking about the circumstance of Jon Arryn's death as well, remembering their fond experiences together with the man when they were younger. I need you, Ned, down in King's Landing, not up here where you're no damage to anybody, he said seriously to Ned. Lord Eddard Stark, I would name you the Hand of the King, he proclaimed. Ned kneeled before Robert. I'm not worthy of the honor, Eddard stated. I'm not trying to honor you, I'm trying to get you to run my kingdom while I drink and whore my way to an early grave, Robert said truthfully with mirth in his voice. You helped me win the Iron Throne, now help me keep it. If your sister had lived, we would have been bound by blood, Robert said bitterly. He could never forgive the Targaryens for what they had done to not only him but his best friend's family. But it's not too late, he said in a moment of realization. I have 2 sons, you have 2 daughters, will join our houses, he declared to Ned. Arya is too young to marry, Ned claimed as Robert turned and walked towards Lyanna's grave. He knew that his youngest daughter had a good relationship with the second prince, but she was still too young, and Naruto will probably refuse until she is of age. He has your sense of honor, you know, Robert said, smiling at the thought of the second son. How he wished he had been born before Joffrey. Naruto was everything he wanted in a son, a natural-born Baratheon, strong, determined, and passionate. Even with his magic, he was worthy of become king, nothing like his firstborn who had been coddled by his mother since birth. He used to ride through the north saving villages from bandits and capturing deserters. The small folk adore him, Ned said. Naruto was a true champion of the people. His mere presence inspired high moral among even the lowest people. The mountain once raided a village. Tywin Lannister claimed that they had failed to pay taxes to his house. Robert said, looking slightly angry that one of his knights could do such dishonorable things such as attacking defenseless people. When Naruto found out, he rode straight into battle alone. Cersei tried to stop him, saying that it was far too dangerous, but he didn't care. When he returned, he brought back 10 head and Ser Gregor Clegane with his armor in pieces and 100 new scars. Robert said joyously his son was only 14 and yet he could best one of the strongest knights in the realm. Flashback. Robert's eyes were wide as Naruto walked back into his throne room with Gregor Clegane being dragged in by 2 members of the city watch. Naruto himself didn't have a single tear in his clothing, yet he was bathed in blood. Robert couldn't help but conclude that none of it belonged to his son, but rather the men who raided the village with Ser Clegane. Cersei had to avert her eyes at the sight of the mountain. There wasn't a part of his body that hadn't been cut. It was as if he had been trapped in a storm of swords. His armor had been decimated. Unlike Naruto, who was covered in the blood of others, he was drenched in his own. Joffrey, who was with his parents, looked on in morbid fractionation at the sight of the crushed mountain of a man. The mountain that rides had been reduced to dirt under his brother's feet. It almost made him feel jealous of the power his dark-haired brother held beside him. Sandor couldn't help but grin at his bleeding brother serves him right, he thought to himself. Is this what a Knight of West is? Mother Naruto asked, disgusted by who his grandfather had allowed under his command. The two city watchguard flinched from the anger in their prince's voice. I'll spare him this time, but next time he does this, even if under grandfather's orders, I'll remove what makes him a man and force him to take the black. If not, I'll send him his head. Naruto stated furiously. Enough, Naruto, Robert said, as he motioned for the city watch to take Gregor to a maester to be healed so he didn't leave this world as horrible of a man he was. Sir Gregor Clegane was still one of the most powerful knights in the Seven Kingdom and his father-in-law's favorite knight. What of the rest of the men with him? The king asked, almost fearing the answer, but at the same time, he couldn't help the bud of pride blooming in him. His son, his blood, had charged into battle on his lonesome and defeated not just the most feared knight in the realm, but several of his men, all without a single cut upon his clothing. Ned sure taught him well, Robert thought. At the amazing warrior his son turned out to be, Naruto took out a scroll and opened it. On the floor in a plume of smoke 10 heads appeared before them. Here, Naruto said, revealing the severed heads of the men he had slain for their crimes. He could easily feel the dark emotions coming from his mother. He knew the 10 men he had killed also served House Lannister, and those were her father's subjects, and she knew he would not be happy. Your grandfather won't be happy, Naruto Cersei warned, knowing that her father wouldn't like the fact that her son had killed so many of his men and had left the mountain in a hospital bed for an extended stay. They got what they deserved, mother, he said. Flashback end. Good. Ned said, not being particularly fond of the man. After the events of the sack of King's Landing, he was been one of the people who in the eyes of the Stark should have been killed for force to take the black. He was happy that Naruto shared the same sentiment as him. What Gregor had done to Elia Martell and her children was horrible. It almost ruined his friendship with Robert when the man pardoned the mountain for his actions, since it was against the Targaryens. With Naruto, come on Arya, you need to be faster, Naruto said as he sparred with the youngest Stark girl. Looking on were Jon Snow and Robb Stark. They couldn't help but wince when their sister took a heavy hit to the side of her abdomen when she left herself wide open for Naruto's attack. Never let your guard down, he said before lowering his sword with the intent of ending their match. Seeing as Arya was sweating bullets, come, let's take a break, he said, only to be hit on the back of the head by a stick. I win, Arya declared with a wide smirk on her face as she claimed victory. An enemy can attack you even after the battle is over. That's what you said last time, the Stark said, earning her laughs from her brother and half-brother. Naruto smirked and rubbed the top of her head, messing up her hair. I guess this makes it what, 50 wins for me and 1 for you, Naruto questioned while reminding her of how many times she had challenged him and lost. Then turning to Robb, Naruto couldn't help but smirk. And should you really be laughing? After all, I don't think you have even a single win against me, Robb, Naruto gloated, shutting Robb up. I still haven't seen the imp, Arya stated. A sigh escaped Naruto's lips. My uncle is probably off hunting at the moment, Naruto surmised, knowing of Tyrion's preference in hobbies. If it wasn't for his sharp mind and blonde hair, Naruto would have assumed that he was Robert's brother. With all his drinking and whoring, I'm sure that he will turn up eventually. Well, I better go find my foolish brother, make sure that the bastard isn't doing anything stupid. I swear Joffrey is half mad. Let's all go hunting before the feast, Naruto said as he walked away from the Stark children. Finding his brother walking with their mother and Ser Sandor Clegane, Naruto decided to make himself known. Picking up a small rock, he tossed it at the back of his brother's head. Joffrey nearly fell forward from the sudden hit to the back of his skull. Who dares, he yelled out in outrage while Sandor drew his sword ready to lop off someone's head. Just your daring younger brother, Goldilocks, Naruto said as he walked up to the two of them, seeing as it was the prince who had threw the stone. The hound sheathed his blade since he couldn't attack the Baratheon even if Joffrey ordered him to. Sandor, you're looking well, taking care of my shit of a brother, right? Naruto said, laughing, earning a grin from the night the two had always had a relationship built upon respect. Sandor respected Naruto for his unbelievable strength and how he had brought his brother to heal without issue. Naruto likewise respected him for his strength, but also because he, unlike his brother and a few others, had some sense. Naruto, how many times do I have to tell you not to speak to your brother like that? Cersei said, scowling at her second-born son. It had become a common thing between the two of them ever since Joffrey had tried to impress their father by gutting a cat. Naruto had nearly shattered Joffrey's teeth with an anger-filled punch upon the sight, and yet Robert allowed it. He's Robert's son after all, she thought. A smirk formed on Naruto's face before swinging his arm around Joffrey's neck. Oh, come on, mother, we're just having some brotherly fun. I mean, if I can't jest with Joff here, then who can I? Naruto claimed, defending his actions. Letting go of his brother, Naruto picked up an apple from a food cart and flicked a gold dragon to the man in charge. I'm going hunting later with Robb and Jon. Care to join us, Joff? Naruto offered. Joffrey gave him a questioning look. Why, so you can embarrass me? No thank you, Joffrey responded bitterly. Unlike his brother, he had little experience with hunting and wasn't as skilled with weapons. Joffrey has to get ready for the feast. Tonight, and you should too. Instead, Naruto, I would appreciate it if you didn't embarrass us by coming in dressed in dirt and blood, the queen said to Naruto, who laughed and waved her off, much how Robert did to her. You will make a proper appearance, she said, putting her foot down. It'll be fine, besides father already said we could go, so it's not like I need your permission, Naruto told her, dismissing her order. Gods he hated how his mother was at times. How dare you, Cersei cried out as she slapped Naruto across the face, her face contorted in fury. This drew the attention of the small folk working around them. For a second, Sandor feared that Naruto would draw his blade and kill the queen. If he had decided to do so, no one would have been able to stop him from doing so. However, he knew that the prince was a lot of things, but not a kinslayer. Even on his worst days, he wouldn't kill his own family. I'll let that one slide, since I was being a bit of an ass, Naruto said as he started to walk away from his two blonde relatives. But do it again and you can expect a prank coming your way. Maybe I'll cover you in fish guts, Naruto said, grinning like a fox. Sandor let out a sigh of relief that Naruto had a much better temperament compared to his brother. Later, Naruto ran after a bear that had survived a shot from Jon's bow and turned towards Winterfell. Shit, Naruto yelled as he sprinted to catch up to it before it got too close to the village outside the castle and killed anyone pulling out a kunai. The Baratheon channeled his wind chakra through it and threw it through one of its hind legs. The bear fell forward as its leg gave out. Catching up to it, Naruto drew his sword and decapitated it. Made it, Naruto said, taking in a breath of air. Rob and Jon rode over to him. I still can't believe you can outrun a horse, Rob said as he dismounted. Naruto grinned as he sealed the bear away in a scroll for later use. Man, you almost screwed up royally, Snow, Rob said as he leaned against a tree. They had been hunting for about 3 hours and the sun was starting to get low. Now I'm going to miss this. You know, one say we'll become like our fathers. Naruto will be some nobleman in King's Landing. I'll be warden of the north. And Jon will shivering away on the wall. Rob lamented, I still can't believe you're going there, Jon, Naruto said to Ned's bastard. Jon gave Naruto a slight glare, causing the prince to sigh at how bullish his friend was being. Look, I know you see going to the wall and taking the black is a way for you to bring honor to yourself even as a bastard, but I've been there, Jon. It's not a nice place to live, Naruto said, remembering everything he had experienced when Ned took him there once to do a quick check. It's colder there on any given day than the worst day here. Half the people there are either old and dying criminals or those who had no choice but join or starve. Even with Kat treating you like she does, your life here is peaches compared to that. The former shinobi warned, I'm sorry, Naruto, but I've already made up my mind, Jon Snow said, staying true to his conviction. You're an idiot, Jon, Naruto sighed as they began to walk back to Winterfell with Jon and Rob leading their horses by the reins. To be honest, I'm happy that Ned is going to King's Landing. I may actually be able to keep my sanity there now, the second prince said to the two. In his opinion, Ned was the type of leader that the Seven Kingdoms needed at the moment. Time skip. The feast had begun with great fanfare, but outside Naruto and Jon were training with one another. Their training swords clashed with one another as the two tried to get the upper hand over the other. Jon grit his teeth as his stamina began to wane, while Naruto looked like he could go for another 3 rounds. Jon knocked Naruto's sword to the side and tried to tackle him down, only for Naruto to catch him with his open arm and throw him back. Steadying himself, Jon charged at the prince once again with a wide swing. Naruto ducked under the swipe and stabbed forward, hitting Jon in the stomach. Dead, Naruto said as the two separate. You've gotten better, Jon, Naruto said as he put the training sword back on its holder, but still not as good as you, Jon said, slightly bitter that he still couldn't beat Naruto. While the prince was one of his greatest friends, he still hoped to one day defeat him at least once. It was then that the two heard galloping coming towards them. Looking at the gate, they saw Jon's uncle Benjen ride in on his horse. Uncle Benjen, Jon yelled as the man got off his horse and embraced his nephew. Jon, it's been too long. Look how big you've gotten, the older Stark said before turning his attention to Naruto. Naruto, I see you're doing well, Benjen said to the young Baratheon, who smiled and locked hands. Why aren't either of you at the feast, he asked the two, earning a sour look from Jon. Lady Stark didn't want to insult the royals with my presence, Jon answered as if he had to swallow poison. Out of all the people in Winterfell, she had always been the harshest with him. A part of him couldn't blame her for feeling that way, but it never stopped hurting foolish old women, Naruto muttered. Benjen sighed, knowing that Caitlyn would never accept Jon into her family. Despite what his brother may say, he was a symbol of Ned's betrayal, living proof that he had slept with another woman. There's always a place for you in the Night's Watch, Jon, Benjen offered his nephew. While it was viewed a prison to most of the 7 kingdoms in the north, it was seen as a great honor to join the Night's Watch. Well, I might as well join the party before my mother sends the hound after me, Naruto said, excusing himself as he walked towards the entrance to where the feast was being held. Stopping, Naruto turned around and looked at Jon. Feel free to join and tell your mother it was a command from the prince himself. If she bitches about it, we could always use more Starks, he said before passing through the door. Jon smiled. When Naruto called him a Stark instead of a Snow, unlike others, he didn't care for his status as a bastard and would happily bash a head, and if they talked down to him, gods know he nearly drove Caitlyn crazy sometimes with his demands. He's a good friend, John said to his uncle, who nodded before they continued to talk the feast. Naruto walked through the crowd and saw his father making out with an attractive tavern wench at the high table. He saw his mother and Caitlyn sitting making some small talk. While watching over the events of the party, looking over, he saw his brother sitting among some other noble folk. "Oh, come one, Joffrey, enjoy yourself," Naruto yelled as he picked up 2 cups of wine and handed one to him. "Of course you would like it here," Joffrey growled at this younger brother who was sipping away at his wine. "Everyone here are savages," he said, glaring around the room as people danced and drank the night away. Joffrey looked over at Sansa and gave her a smile, which she returned with a bashful look. Naruto noticed this and smirked as he yanked his brother to his feet. "What are you doing?" the blonde yelled as he was dragged over to the table where the Stark girls were sitting. "Instead of making googly eyes at a girl, why not grow a pair and talk to her in person?" Naruto whispered to him as he pushed his way through the crowd. He didn't like the brat, but as far as he cared, bringing him and Sansa together would either make her realize how much a shit he was or actually make him less of a bastard and push him to be more of a man. "Hey, may we sit here?" Naruto asked the 2. "Yeah," Arya said as the 2 princes sat down with them. The youngest Stark woman looked at Joffrey, who looked a bit out of place at the party. "So are you as strong as Naruto? I heard he can beat 10 men on his own," Arya asked the crown prince, who scowled. "No," he said bitterly, having to admit that. "Why is that?" Arya asked the blonde innocently. "You're both brothers, so should you have the same skills that he does?" she asked him. Much to Naruto's amusement, he could already see Joffrey turning red in the face in anger. The young Stark had inadvertently hit one of Joffrey's weaknesses, comparing him in terms of strength to Naruto. "Enough, Arya," Naruto said, not wanting his brother to cause a scene in the middle of a celebration. "Gods know what their father would do to them if they interrupted him and his merrymaking. I can't believe I'm going to leave this place again for that crummy red keep. I'd rather be up here," Naruto said. "But the South is Sansa started before Arya flicked some food onto her face. Naruto barely held back a laugh as the redhead recoiled at the sudden attack from her sister Arya. She yelled out in anger, "Why can't you behave like a lady for once?" she yelled before Rob came and lifted Arya up. "All right, time for bed," Rob said as he took Arya to her room. Naruto laughed at the annoyed face his future wife was making as her older brother carried her out just as Rob left. Jon and Tyrion entered the room, much to both Caitlyn's and Cersei's annoyance, looking at the other 2 at the table. Naruto excused himself to go talk with Jon and his uncle. "Well, I feel like a third will now, Joff. Treat her nice," Naruto said, placing a hand on Joffrey's shoulder and squeezing down a bit to heart, earning a grimace from the crown prince. "I mean it, Joffrey," he said coldly before walking over to Jon, who was being careful not to meet Kat's gaze. Joffrey glared at his brothers retreating back before looking at Sansa, who looked a bit worried for him. "Are you okay?" Sansa asked, knowing just how strong Naruto could be when he wanted to. It wasn't hard to catch the slightly pained look on Joffrey's face when Naruto grabbed his shoulder. "He can be such a brute sometimes," the redhead said, looking at Naruto as he sat with her half-brother. She didn't know why Naruto always treated Joffrey like he did while treating almost everyone else nicely. "I'm fine. When I'm king one day, I'll finally be able to show him which one of us is truly fit to be a king," he said before looking at Sansa in the eyes and offering her a charming smile. "And you will be my queen," he said, earning a blush from the redhead with Naruto. "My, what gods were strong enough to get you to leave you little hunt?" Uncle Naruto asked as the imp of House Lannister grabbed a cup of wine and drank it down. He had heard that his other uncle Jaime had hired several whores earlier in the day, but given his position, Naruto assumed they had been for Tyrion himself. "Or were you just too overwhelmed to continue?" the young Baratheon asked. Tyrion laughed at his nephew's joke. "There's no hunt to grand and no prey that can avoid the thrust of my spear, Naruto. I just need to have a light meal today before the feast," he said as a servant placed a piece of meat on the half-man's plate. "Are you sure you don't want to travel to the wall with me? I heard it's great this time of year," Tyrion said to the former shinobi. "Been there before, but you really shouldn't go there if you're just going to disrespect them and all the work they do. Maybe grandfather will send a raven telling them to make you take the black," Naruto said, getting laughs from the 2 men at his table. "Oh, who am I kidding? You'd lose your head faster than any brother before you know way you could keep your pants on for longer that fortnight," Naruto accused. "Oh, please, the whores would be begging in the streets for me to break my vows and join them," Tyrion claimed. "Given how much you spend on them, I wouldn't be surprised," Jon said quietly, but loud enough that Naruto could hear over the music. "That's the spirit, Jon," Naruto yelled, slapping the Stark on the back and calling for more drinks to be served to them. "Soon you'll be dressed in black and freezing your balls off, so enjoy your freedom while you can," Naruto said as he raised a cup to the air, followed by the other 2 before they drank their wine. "I'll try," Jon said, looking slight back at Caitlyn, who was still glaring at him while talking to the queen. "Forget them, Jon," Naruto said, looking over at his mother, who turned to Meet his gaze. Naruto smiled and gave her a smile and wave before turning back to the other two at his table. If you let titles hold you back you'll get nowhere, even the wall won't be about to save you, the Baratheon said, remembering how people first reacted when he had shown his magic in public when he was a child. The Septons and Septas had tried to get his father to get rid of him in one way or another. Talking from experience, sorcerer Tyrion asked his nephew like him. Naruto had been looked down on by several people throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Many tried to denounce him for his ability to use magic. Many of the more open speakers ended up on a pike. When word got back to Robert, the first told him the same thing. He said, looking at Jon, wear it like a badge of honor, don't let others use it to hurt you, and if they do you kick their ass. Naruto added with Kat and Cersei, honestly he's insufferable sometimes, Cersei said, sighing, seeing how her second son had manhandled her first. Unfortunately for her, that was a common occurrence for them. Naruto and Joffrey thought in completely different ways, and oftentimes they would clash over their ideals. The problem came when Naruto would use his strength to push Joffrey into a corner, a trait he no doubt got from his brute of a father. Yes, he is. Caitlyn responded, not liking how the prince had invited her husband's bastard to the feast. Despite knowing her disdain for the snow, she knew that if he had his way, Naruto would legitimize Jon as a Stark in a heartbeat. But I know that he has a good heart. Day of the hunt. Naruto had been training with Arya when he heard the commotion coming from outside one of the towers. Rushing over, he and the Ned's second daughter found the Bran being carried away by Hodder. What happened? Naruto demanded from one of the small folk who had gathered around tea. The young lord must slipped and fallen while climbing the tower. My prince, the man responded, a bit scared of the concerned prince. That's impossible, Bran had never fallen before, he's a really good climber. Arya yelled back at the, not believing that her brother would slip and fall like that. She had seen him climb dozens of times and not once had he ever messed up. Naruto, tell him Bran would never fall like that, she said to the young Baratheon who sighed. Arya, no one is perfect, Naruto told her, hugging the now crying girl. She was scared for her brother's life. They had seen how Bran's legs were bent at angles not meant for humans. Come on, let's go see Bran, Naruto said, but gave one last look at the top of the tower where an open window was flapping in the wind. The two walked over to Bran's room where Maester Luwin was taking care of the young boy and giving him some medicine. Caitlyn was sitting by the bed. Her eyes were red and puffy from all the crying she had done. Bran, Arya yelled, rushing over to her brother who was unconscious. He'll wake up soon, right, Maester Luwin? She asked the older man, who looked at her with saddened eyes. He will live, he confirmed, but I do not know when he will wake up, he added on, not wanting to give Arya a false sense of hope. Caitlyn took her daughter into her hands as Arya continued to weep. The maester looked at the prince, who standing to the side to let the Stark women have their moment. Prince Naruto, do you have any magic that could help Luwin? asked the Baratheon. Naruto shook his head. I don't know much about healing magic, he responded. Despite everything he had accomplished in his former life, Naruto had never learned healing jutsu like his teammate Sakura had, and could only heal others using either Kurama's chakra or his Six Paths chakra, neither of which he had access to at the moment. I could try, but I'm afraid to cause more harm, he admitted. I see, Luwin said as he went back to tending to Bran's legs. It was best to let things be then, to try to use magic and make things even worse for Bran. Then it already was seeing that Arya had cried herself to sleep. Naruto gave Caitlyn, and I'll pray to both the old gods and the new for Bran's recovery, he said before leaving the bedroom. I need to get Ned back here, he said before running out of Winterfell. After the hunting group, it took him only a few minutes before he caught up to them. His father was in the middle of trying to hit a buck with an arrow, only to miss completely. Nice try, father, Naruto said as the buck ran away. Naruto, what are you doing here? Ned asked his forward ward. Naruto's expression too serious as he faced Ned. You need to get back to Winterfell. Bran had an accident and fell from a tower. He's being tended to be Maester Luwin, but no one knows when he'll wake up. By the gods, his legs are mangled, Naruto informed the northerner, whose eyes widened at the shocking news. Robert the First need to get home, Ned said as he rode off towards Winterfell. With Jory close behind, a sigh escaped Robert's lip as he watched his sworn brother leave to be by his family's side. It had been such a good hunt too, he thought to himself before ordering everyone to return to Winterfell. He wasn't going to be out enjoying himself while his friend could very well be on the verge of losing a child. Day of departure. Naruto, he heard someone call for him. He was currently laying on the roof of the castle waiting for the time for them to leave. The entire stay had taken a turn for the worse after Bran fell from the tower. Caitlyn wouldn't even leave the room where Bran laid. He of course had forced his brother to give her his condolences. Flashback, you will go into that room and tell them they have your condolences. Joffrey, Naruto yelled at his older brother, who had refused to do so even after their uncle had told him to do so. Mother has done so, I have done so, even Tommen and Myrcella have talked to her. Now go, Naruto said before storming away from his brother, who glared at him. Enjoy this while you can, Naruto, Joffrey said to his brother, who stopped and glanced back at him. Once I'm king you'll never be able to order me around like this, and if you do I'll have your head, the blonde claimed. Flashback end looking down he saw Sansa looking rather annoyed at having to be the one to call him for their departure. Standing up, Naruto leaped off the roof, causing Sansa to roll her eyes at his blatant use of his power. To anyone else the fall would have been fatal, but she knew from experience that the blonde would be perfectly fine. Are you done? Sansa asked. You're still angry over those comments about Joff? Naruto asked as he walked with her back towards where everyone was waiting for them. You Tully women sure know how to keep a grudge, the Baratheon said to the redhead. Maybe if you acted more like a prince and less like a wildling we could get along, Sansa told him. Naruto sighed. You spend too much time with that old woman, Naruto said, complaining about the septa that had taught Sansa and Arya. The difference was that Arya was rambunctious than Sansa, and grew up admiring the Knights of the North. He was sure that even if he wasn't there, Arya would have ended up the same as she was now. Remember when you used to think I was going to be? What did you call me? Oh yeah, your prince's shining armor, Naruto said, laughing at the memory. Sansa's cheeks burned red when Naruto brought up their childhood. It was no secret that in her earlier years she had a crush on the prince, thinking that he would one day take her away from the north into the south, to live the life of a princess in King's Landing. Oh shut up, she muttered. I wouldn't marry you in 100 years, she told him. Yeah, let's just go, Naruto said, passing her. King's Road. Naruto walked towards where his father and Ned were talking. Judging from the look on Ned's face, Robert had just asked about a sensitive topic, likely something about John's mother. On Naruto, come here, you should hear. We were just telling some our old conquests, the king said, calling his son over. You mean about all the wenches you slept with? Naruto asked, amused. He knew how his father was. It wasn't a secret that besides battle, sex and drinking were some of the few things that his father still enjoyed. I can hit him for you if you want, Ned, Naruto offered, knowing that it would be unsightly for a non-royal to strike the king. It's fine, Naruto, Ned responded with a smirk. There was a rider in the night, Robert said seriously, getting both Ned and Naruto's attention. He carried a message that Daenerys Targaryen has wed a Dothraki horse lord, he said. Seething in anger, everyone knew that his father hated the former ruling house. In a way, they had ruined his life by stealing away his bride, something he never forgave them for. Should we send a wedding gift? Ned asked Robert. Yes, Robert answered darkly, a sharp blade and Naruto here to make sure it finds its way into her heart, the king elaborated, looking at his son. If anyone in the Seven Kingdoms could do it, it was the prince himself. What do you say, boy? Want to kill the last Targaryens? He asked his son, who sighed. I don't care much for them, Naruto answered. She is but a child, Robert, Ned said, hating the idea of sending an assassin after a helpless girl, and soon that child will spread her legs and start birthing children, Targaryen children. Robert raged as he stabbed his knife into the table. After everything they have done to us, to your family, he roared, remembering his long-dead love Lyanna Stark. This wedding gives Viserys an army of Dothraki just primed to rape and pillage my kingdoms, and there are those who still call me an usurper who would gladly join those shits, he said to Ned. You are right, Ned admitted, knowing that his friend was right. Viserys probably got an army in exchange for his sister, but the Dothraki will never cross any water their horses can't drink, and if by some chance they do cross, we'll defeat them once again, the Stark liege lord claimed. I hope you're right, Ned. War is coming, I can feel it. Time skip. Naruto sat on a rock as he watched as Arya practiced her swordsmanship with Micah, the son of a butcher that was traveling along with them on the King's Road. He still found it a bit wasteful that his father would bring a butcher and his son with him on a trip to Winterfell and back, but he wasn't the king, so it wasn't his place to say. Concentrating on the quick stick fight between the two, it was clear that while Micah was a bit stronger than Arya in terms of physicality, Arya was by far the better fighter, having trained with him over the years. You're overextending, Micah, Naruto warned as he saw the boy swing his stick, that which was easily blocked by Arya, who deflected the swing and knocked it out of his hand, pointing her sword at his throat. She held him at stick point for a few seconds before she smiled and backed off. I guess I win again, Arya said, grinning widely as she looked back at Naruto, who clapped his hands with a warm smile on his face. It made her happy to see him cheer her on like that. Of course she never wanted to be a lady, but rather maybe a knight, or something like that. Her face fell, however, when she heard a second set of clapping. The three of them looked over to see Joffrey and Sansa walking towards them, coming of a path that led to the clearing they were using to train. Shocked by the sudden appearance of the crown prince, Micah dropped his stick on the ground and bowed to Joffrey. He and his father had been around long enough to know that messing with the blonde was a bad idea if they wanted to keep their lives. He wasn't kind like Naruto could be. He had seen Joffrey's cruel nature from time to time. So you want to be a knight, butcher's boy? He asked Micah mockingly as he looked at the stick on the ground. Pick it up, he said as he drew his sword. Joffrey, enough, Naruto said, standing up and glaring at his older brother. If he really intended on attacking a defenseless and untrained kid with an actual sword, then he had another thing coming to him. There were a lot of things he had let slide with Joffrey over the years. This wasn't one of them. Oh come on, brother, I was just teasing the boy, he said, pressing his sword against Micah's cheek, the butcher's boy, was too terrified by the prospect of defending himself against the prince or being cut up by said prince to even move. A drop of blood dripped down his cheek as the blade broke through his skin. Naruto was about to act to stop his brother when he saw Arya, who was much closer, reacted and hit Joffrey with her stick several times. "Leave him alone," the young Stark yelled as she batted at the blonde royal. Joffrey recoiled while Sansa gasped at the sight of her sister attacking her betrothed. Taking the opportunity, Micah ran away from the situation, not wanting to be involved any further. Now that it has escalated to this point, things turned for the worse when Joffrey lashed out at Arya with his sword, causing Sansa to look unconflicted. She didn't know what to do now. On one hand, Arya had stuck Joffrey first, but Arya was her little sister and Joffrey was using a real sword while she had just a stick as sword. That could kill her in one strike if he was good enough or got lucky. Arya's training showed, however, as she managed to avoid the sloppy swing, but still, though, she clumsily fell to the ground as Joffrey was going to throw another swing at her. Naruto had already crossed the space between them and caught the sword with his bare hand. A small trail of blood flowed from the point of contact, though the sword didn't cut much farther into his palm. "That's enough, Joffrey, leave now," he told his brother. His words carried the threat of untold pains he would inflict on his brother if he dared to even lay a finger on her. Joffrey grit his teeth, despising being talked down like that by his younger brother. He hated him so much whenever he did so. He was meant to be king, yet his brother's words always carried more weight than his because he had the power to back it up. Even the mountain would dare speak back to him after the thrashing he received from Naruto. Fine, he spat as he pulled his sword away from the Naruto, whose glare never faltered off his blonde brother. Steam began rising out of Naruto's bloodied hand as the wound began to heal and close itself. Naruto turned around to help Arya up from the ground, only for the blonde Baratheon to give in to his unstable anger and swing at his brother's unprotected back. Instinctively, Naruto turned around and grabbed Joffrey's sword arm before it could finish the swing. The sounds of bones cracking could be heard throughout the clearing. "No!" Sansa cried out as she heard Joffrey screamed in agony as the bones in his wrist began to fracture, if not break, under his brother's grip. Naruto hadn't bothered to hold back his overwhelming strength as he glared at his older brother. "Let go of him, Naruto," she yelled at the younger prince, fearful of what he was doing to Joffrey. The black-haired Baratheon looked Sansa with a slight glare. Even after he had attacked her own sister, she still stood by Joffrey, looking back at Joffrey, who was now crying, begging for him to let go of his arm. He scoffed. "Fine," he said, throwing his brother to the ground. "Raise your sword to me again and I'll take your arm for good. Got it, Joff?" he threatened in a way that sounded a lot like their father. In fact, if he was here he would probably cheer him on, calling him a damn good Baratheon. Near them, Arya's direwolf Nymeria growled at Joffrey, ready to attack if the blonde didn't leave them alone. Arya stood up and patted her pet to keep her calm and stop her from attacking the prince. "Come on, Naruto, let's go find Micah. He must be scared," she said softly, not wanting to see her friend fight anymore with his brother. She knew that he was taking it lightly on Joffrey because he was his brother. If anyone else had tried that, they would be a smear on the ground. "Right," Naruto said as he walked away with Arya and Nymeria in the direction that Micah ran off, and he couldn't stand the sight of his brother any longer. To think that he was related to that scum made him sick to his stomach. To think that someone like that would be made a king baffled, and Nymeria growled as she charged at Joffrey when he picked up his sword and turned towards his brother and Arya. "Nymeria, stop!" Sansa yelled as she tried to get the direwolf off Joffrey as it bit down on the prince's other arm. Blood poured down his arm as Nymeria snarled with the arm in her mouth. "Naruto, Arya, stop her!" Sansa yelled at the two. Nymeria, the reincarnated shinobi, called out, getting the direwolf's attention. The beast ran to his side, its maw still covered in blood, before the three walked away. As soon as they were far enough that Naruto was sure Joffrey wouldn't hear, he turned to Arya. "Send Nymeria back for north," he told her, knowing exactly what Joffrey would do. Arya had struck him and her direwolf had bitten him when he told their mother she would be out for blood, but he deserved it. Arya protested, thinking that Naruto would protect her pet. Normally she would be right, but in this case Nymeria had attacked the crown prince in offense that even he would have trouble justifying. Arya was one thing, Nymeria was another, and the look Naruto was giving her told her everything she needed to know. If Nymeria stayed, she would be killed. When they got back to the inn, Arya turned to Nymeria, who looked at her with an innocently look despite what was going on. "Go on, Nymeria, go home," she said to the direwolf, which made a whining noise. "Go," she yelled. Nymeria stood up and ran off into the forest as Arya started to tear up at the sight of her pet running off into the forest. Naruto put a hand on her shoulder with a sad smile on his face, knowing that it was for the best. It was the best way to keep the direwolf safe for the moment. "Come on, they'll be looking for you as soon as Joffrey or Sansa tell the others what happened. We should give them time to cool off," he said as he led her away from the area, knowing that the Lannister guards would be looking for them soon. Nighttime. As soon as Naruto and Arya returned, they were brought before his mother and father by the first guard that had spotted them. Naruto sighed as he looked at Arya, who looked a bit nervous about essentially being on trial before they could really begin. Ned bursted in with quite the serious look on his face. Arya quick went to her father and started to apologize over and over again to the Warden of the North, who hugged her. "It's all right, Arya," he said, rubbing his daughter's back to comfort her before looking at the royal family. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. As he let go of her, he and his men had been looking for her the entire day. "What wasn't she brought to me at once?" he questioned his longtime friend. "How do you speak to your king in that manner?" Cersei asked Ned. "Shut your mouth, woman," Robert said harshly, stopping whatever else his wife and queen was going to say before it could come out of her mouth. It was late and he didn't have time to hear her ramble on. Turning back to Ned, he continued to speak. "I never meant to frighten the girl, Ned," he started. But Naruto knew that there was a but coming soon. "But we need to get this business done quickly," he said. It was late and he wanted to rest. This entire situation was bothersome to say the least. As Robert stopped talking, Cersei continued, "Off your daughter and the butcher's boy attacked my son," he said as Joffrey besides her looked down as if asking for sympathy from the onlookers. "That beast of hers nearly tore his arm off," she accused, motioning to the bandages that Joffrey wore on his arm, "from where Nymeria bit him." "That's not true," Arya yelled out, stepping in front of her father. "She only bit him a little," she whispered, causing Robert to look. "He was hurting Micah and attacked Naruto," she accused him. "Joff told us what happened," Cersei said, believing her eldest son over the word of the young girl. "She and butcher's boy beat him with clubs while she sent her beast at him," she said, briefly recounting the story that Joffrey had told her. "And of course you believed him," Naruto said, glaring at his mother, as he placed a hand on Arya's shoulder, signaling to let him take care of it. While it was clear to everyone that his mother favored his elder brother, his father had always leaned to his side. It probably had something to do with the fact that he was the only who inherited any of his traits. "Don't listen to him, he's just going to lie to protect the girl," the blonde Baratheon yelled out, pointing at his brother with his good hand. "He attacked me as well and nearly broke my arm," he told their father, who looked back at Naruto as if demanding an answer. It was true that Joffrey had come back with both his arms injured, one with bite marks clearly from some form of animal, the other had internal damage with finger-like bruises on his flesh. "I wouldn't have done that if you didn't attack me while my back was turned after I gave you the chance to leave, coward," Naruto refuted, accusing Joffrey to of attempting to strike at his back, which was not only cowardly, but also extremely dishonorable, something that he knew that his father would look down on. His father, despite being a horrible king, was a warrior at heart. Even if he had grown old and fat, such actions would look especially bad on Joffrey. "You attacked your own brother from behind after being beaten by him?" he asked Joffrey, his voice drenched in disappointment. Cersei glared at Naruto for his accusation, though she had to admit she was mildly proud of her dark-haired son for using his father's personality to sway him to his side. "Liar," Joffrey yelled back. "It's true," Arya shouted. "Enough," Robert finally said, shutting the two up. He was getting a headache already from everything. He just wanted a strong drink and maybe a good tavern wench to accompany him to bed. "Now he tells me one thing, they tell me another," he said, conflicted on what to do. "Seven, hell, what am I supposed to make of this?" he questioned. On one side was his favorite son and the daughter of his best friend, on the other was his shit of an heir, but also his own damn wife. "Where's your other daughter, Ned?" he asked. "In her bed." "Asleep," Ned answered, as if it were obvious. It was already late at night. "Sansa should have been sleeping by now. As far as he knew, she's not," the queen said, earning a confused look from Ned as to what she meant by that. "Sansa, come here, dear," Cersei said as Sansa was led through the gathered crowd by a guard until the redhead stood in the middle of everyone. Now all eyes were on Sansa. For once Naruto didn't know what she would do. On one hand, she was betrothed to and infatuated with Joffrey. On the other hand, Arya was her younger sister. "Go on," Robert said, motioning to Sansa to speak. "Tell me what happened. Tell it all and tell it true," he commanded, wanting the full story. "It's a great crime to lie to a king," he warned. Sansa looked nervous as she looked to the side to Ned before looking back over at Joffrey, who had his eyes set on her. Lastly, she turned to Naruto, whose cerulean eyes bore into her, as if daring her to lie in front of him, knowing he would instantly be able to tell. "I don't know," she said softly, as was too conflicted to take a side. "I don't remember. I didn't see," Sansa claimed. Arya quickly reacted in anger at the lies sprouted by her own sister, who wouldn't even come to her aid. "Liar," she yelled, pulling on Sansa's red hair in her fury. "Liar, liar, liar," he yelled as the two sisters struggled. "Hey," Ned yelled, trying to pull his youngest daughter of his eldest. "Stop it," he commanded as he finally got Arya off. Sansa, who backed away from Arya, who glared at her sister Cersei, opened her mouth as if to say something, but Robert cut her off in favor of addressing his second son. He knew Naruto had the power to know if someone was lying to him, a skill that was most useful in King's Landing and had helped him out several times. "Did she tell the truth, son?" he asked his only true Baratheon son. "She lied," Naruto said plainly, causing mutters to spread across the hall. A sigh escaped Robert's lips as he decided to just end this stupidity. He couldn't rightfully punish his best friend's daughter, not When even Naruto was siding against his own brother, his son had picked up the North's honor. During his years under Ned, his word was almost as good as gold in many ways. He just needed to fight a little to get Cersei off his back. Then this farce is over, Ned. Just see to it that this doesn't happen again, he said, getting up from his seat. And what of the direwolf? Cersei asked, not liking the conclusion of the trial one bit. In the end her son was injured, and the ones who perpetrated it were getting off without a single punishment. What about the beast that nearly bit your son's arm off? He will bear those scars for the rest of his life, she questioned. Nymeria's gone. Naruto told them she was scared off by the guards and ran away into the forest. He told his father the account was confirmed. One of the Lannister guards who told Robert that no one had seen the direwolf since it left with Arya in the morning. So be it, Robert said, walking away. We have another wolf, Cersei mentioned. Robert paused and turned around to face his wife. As Yuli said, plainly not caring anymore about the situation. He wasn't going to stand and fight further into the night over a direwolf. You can't mean it, Ned whispered, not wanting to see his daughter's beloved direwolf put down. A wolf is no pet, Ned. Get her a dog, he said before walking away as Sansa and Arya started to put the pieces together on what they meant and beginning to protest the decision to put Lady down to Cersei and their father. You can't do that. Lady is a good girl. She didn't do anything, Sansa cried out, not wanting her beloved pet to get put down for something that she hadn't done. It wasn't fair. This wouldn't have happened if you just told the truth, Naruto said, glaring daggers at Sansa. She had been willing to put her love of Joffrey before even her own family. He didn't know what she saw in his shit stain for a brother, but at the moment he didn't care. If she had just told the truth, there wouldn't be any confusion and they would all be asleep by now and Lady's life wouldn't be on the line now. Naruto, stop him, Sansa begged, not knowing who else to turn to. From the look on his face, Joffrey was more than happy to see the wolf put to rest. Even if it hurt her, it stuck her heart, but she knew that she couldn't turn to her beloved for this plea. She begged. The Baratheons stared down at Sansa for a second as everyone seemed to leave. Ned had volunteered to do the job. The direwolf was the symbol of his house. As such, he would only allow her a northern death, but Naruto relented. Seeing the pleading look in Sansa's eyes, wait, he said, raising his hand up, stopping everyone in their tracks. I want the direwolf as my pet, he demanded from the redhead. If Lady belonged to him, then no one would touch the prince's pet. Yes, Sansa said, wanting to save Lady's life even if she had to give her up. It left Lady out of her custody, but alive was better than just having her dead on the King's Road. The king looked at her before looking at Naruto, who nodded. Then it lives, he said. Before leaving the room, Cersei glared at her son and the Starks as Sansa smiled and wiped her tears. With that, Ned led the two girls back to their rooms for the night, while Naruto walked out of the inn grabbing a tankard of mead. As he left the old building, as he did, he spotted the hound with his horse on it. Was a small body that Naruto recognized at Micah. Hound, he yelled as he stormed towards the armored man. The man froze and looked back at young Prince, who had a furious look on his face. Normally, he would never allow anyone to speak to him like that, but to a degree even he was nervous about being caught by Naruto. He knew and respected what the blonde had done to his brother, but he never wanted that fury placed on him. He didn't know if he would survive. Is he alive? Naruto demanded. No, Sandor responded honestly. Joffrey had wanted him alive. He wanted to deal the death himself, but the boy ran away, so he pursued. In the end, he killed the boy with his sword and put an end to his short life. Within seconds, he found a fist buried into his stomach. His armor crumpled like paper under Naruto's fist. As the Baratheon pulled his fist out, the hound fell to his knees, dry heaving from the blow to his stomach. He had heard tale of the prince's ungodly strength and respected him for what he had done to his brother, but now being on the receiving end, it was horrifying. Naruto leaned down with a dangerous look in his eyes. If I didn't respect you and know you were only following orders, I would have killed you, he whispered darkly into the Clegane's ear. Despite him being generally nice to everyone, he was known to show his father's rage when pushed. You will apologize to the butcher for his son, he ordered, and you will compensate him fully for his lose. And I don't care what my grandfather said, Naruto continued with no room to argue. Time skip. After a long journey down from the north, the capital city of Westeros was now in sight. Naruto sighed as he rode alongside Sansa and Arya. He would miss the north. Sure, it was so cold that one could freeze their balls off, but it was home to him, the place where he had spent a large portion of his life. Back to the shithole, he muttered, earning a giggle from Arya and a side glance from Sansa. He hadn't talked much with the eldest Stark sister since the events at the inn. He figured that she was likely conflicted on what to make of what had happened. It was plain as day that she had some sort of feelings for his brother, but he figured that it was because he was what she saw as a real prince. Unlike him, he couldn't help but have a bad feeling about being back. However, King's Landing was, for lack of a better word, a sewer, not because of the horrid smell that filled some of its streets, but because of everything that slithered around the city. He knew full well that several people of influence had spies hidden among the small folk, from whores to wet nurses, beggars to blacksmiths. Just about anyone could be working for someone else. This place smells, Sansa complained as the royal party moved through the streets and towards the Red Palace's courtyard. Arya couldn't help but agree with her sister but wasn't as vocal about it as Sansa had been. She didn't want to seem like she was complaining. Naruto sighed, knowing that King's Landing was rather split among its people. For the most part, people who lived in the city were pretty well off when compared to some of the small folk who lived outside of its walls. It was a good place for trade and to do business, finding a job and building a career of a craft. But on the other side there was Flea Bottom, a slum if he had ever seen one, the darker side of the city that was often ignored by those who ruled it and those who visited it. Lord Aaron had been trying to do something about it, but funds have been a bit tight as of late, he said as he looked at Ned, who was talking to his father. He felt bad for his father. Figure it probably wouldn't be long until Ned found out what his father had been up to at the kingdom, and just how bad the state of affairs was among the crown. When it came to money, your father's gonna have his work cut out for him being the hand of a king like my father, Naruto told them, knowing that his father wasn't really a good king at all. Tight, how is that so, Naruto? Sansa asked, wondering what the prince meant by that. Looking over at his father, the dark-haired prince sighed deeply. As I said, Ned will have a tough time with a king like my father, Sansa, he said as he turned towards Ned, who was speaking with his father. He knew that Ned didn't exactly want the job in the first place. When he found out how bad the situation was here, he wondered if he would stay to help or run away. Unfortunately, he knew that Ned would never leave his post unless Robert pushed him too far. Enough of this talk, Arya yelled as she glared at Naruto and Sansa before smirking widely at the two of them. Naruto, you should show us around the castle, she declared as it all made sense to her. They were going to be staying there anyway, so they might as well have someone show them around when they first arrive. Unknown to them, they had a listener to them, someone who had heard their plan and had a desire to seek revenge against the prince. Arriving at the palace stables, Naruto got off his horse and gave it to the handler before he took off with Arya and Sansa, leaving Ned to go attend his duties as the new hand of the king, leading the two girls. Sansa stayed a bit behind them as Arya walked side by side with her fiancé. She was too young to marry, but her father and Robert had already decided for her. If anything, she was happy that her father paired her with Naruto and not Joffrey. She was sure he would be dead in a week. From the way the two of them reacted to the tour, Naruto could tell that the two were still completely different when it came to what they wanted to see in the Red Palace. Arya liked to visit the rooms that had something to do with weapons. She seemed to enjoy everything related to fighting, and as far away from being ladylike as possible. Sansa, on the other hand, seemed extremely interested in the cultural and more royal parts of the palace and didn't seem to care much about ones related to combat. It was an interesting duality between the two of them. However, as they explored the palace, a sense of irritation filled Naruto when he saw the mountain standing in front of them, blocking their way forward. The man was wearing his armor, but due to a lack of a helmet, one could see his scar-ridden face injuries that he had gained from his clash with Naruto a year prior. Gregor, can I help you? He asked the knight. He didn't really have time to deal with the hulking brute at the moment. Sir Clegane, Sansa said with a small bit of awe in her voice. She had heard tales of his sheer size, but seeing him now in person made her feel almost tiny by comparison. She couldn't help but gulp as she wondered why he was here. He's so big, Arya muttered as she looked up at the beast of a man. My prince, Gregor nearly spat out. There was no secret that he hated the second prince with a passion. The boy had embarrassed him and left him with eternal reminders of his defeat at the hands of the young Baratheon. Looking at the younger Stark, he knew that she was betrothed to Naruto, which made her a prime target in his eyes when he had the chance. However, he also knew that he would have to strike when Naruto wasn't around. The king wanted to know if you would join the tourney, Gregor told the former shinobi, hoping that he wouldn't so that he could really go at it whenever the prince joined. He could never cut loose or risk his life being ended. Naruto smirked. Of course I will, Gregor. That may be the only way the kingdom can make a bit of money back on these stupid events, they said, knowing that he would likely give the money back to the treasury or the small folk. Either choice was a better use for those golden dragons than letting them line the coffers of someone like the mountain. Sando was a bit surprised to see Naruto flat out ignore any formality with such a famed knight, referring to the mountain by their first name without even a sir beforehand. Not only that, but seeing Sir Gregor Clegane was truly terrifying. His monstrous form, his scarred face, his sheer presence, and yet Naruto didn't even blink. Is it true that Naruto bested you and 10 of your men by himself? Arya asked. Much to Sansa's horror, the knight glared at the girl, and for a moment the two Stark girls feared for their lives as the murderous look that the mountain that rides. However, he then turned his attention to Naruto, who was looking at him with his hand on his sword ready to draw it. If Gregor even attempted to harm the two girls with him, the knight may have been a brutal beast in battle, but he wasn't stupid enough to think that he could attack the daughters of the new hand of the king along with one of the princes and get away with it. That was if he survived his battle with Naruto, who had already threatened to take his head once before. I'll see you at the tourney, Gregor said as he pushed his way through the two girls shoving Sansa down on her rear as he stormed forward, irritated that he was forced to relent, like that he was sure that he could find some servant and relieve some stress somewhere in the Red Keep. Naruto watched as the knight retreated with a glare before looking back at Sansa and offering her a hand. Taking the prince's hand, Sansa stood back up and looked at her younger sister as if she had grown a second head. "Are you mad, Arya? What if he decided to lop your head off?" she asked, worried about the safety of her sister. Things were still tense between them after the incident with Joffrey and Micah, but Arya was still her sister. "Nothing would change that. I was curious," Arya retorted before a sigh from Naruto interrupted them. Looking back at the Baratheon, they saw him run his hand through his black locks. "What's wrong?" she asked. Her best friend snapped out of his thoughts. Naruto looked at the two of them with a sheepish expression. "Sorry, just thinking about how Ned is probably pulling his hair out right now in his meeting," he admitted as he leaned against a pillar and looked out the window at the city. King's Land was massive, by all accounts housing thousands of businesses and even more people. However, it was growing ever poorer under his father as he spent an extreme amount on luxurious things that they could no longer afford. "Why is that?" Sansa asked, worried about her father. "Is it about the kingdom being tight like you said before?" she asked, harkening back to the conversation that had before. Closing his eyes, Naruto rubbed his temples. "The kingdom is deeply in the red right now. My father has borrowed so much from the Lannisters and the Iron Bank that they might as well hold the kingdom by the balls," he said, much to the shock of Sansa, who to a degree understood just how bad things could be if what Naruto said was true. Arya looked a bit confused, but understood that it must not have been a good thing given how Naruto and Sansa reacted. "And my father throwing a tourney means that we're gonna have to borrow even more," he said grimly. In another wing of the castle, Cersei was tending to her oldest son. Both his arms were harmed during that incident with the butcher's boy. She thanked the seven that her second son hadn't gone ahead and shattered Joffrey's arm with his near-godly strength. She was often conflicted when it came to her second son. Her father saw him as the next true heir of their house, while Joffrey took the throne, the heir that Jaime was supposed to be but couldn't due to his ambitions. Out of her four children, Naruto had been the only one born with Robert's traits, his black hair and blue eyes. He was nothing like the other three little lions she had given birth to, and to further separate them was his power. Her father coveted Naruto's amazing magical power, calling it the future of House Lannister. Joffrey winced when Cersei dabbed some cream on the nearly healed wound where the direwolf had bitten him. "Please, it's nearly healed," she said as she finished up. "It's ugly," Joffrey said as he gazed upon the scar on his arm with disdain. "A king should have scars," the queen said as she wrapped bandages around the arm to cover the wound. "You fought off a direwolf. You're a warrior like your father, like your brother," she said, knowing that Joffrey always was jealous of his brother. He resented Naruto for being everything that he was not, for having their father's love when he didn't. Gods knew Robert loved Naruto. The boy was everything he had wanted in a son. She often had to talk Robert out of trying to bypass the laws of succession and making Naruto his heir. Joffrey always had to crawl of Robert's love, and even then failed almost every time. "I'm not like them," Joffrey responded bitterly, knowing that despite what his mother told him, he was nothing. "Those two, I couldn't fight back my own brother, let alone the wolf. All I did was scream while the two Stark girls watched on," he added, knowing that his brother had gone easy on him. Had Naruto been trying, he would have killed him in an instant. "Your brother is a special case. I doubt any knight could best him alone." Joffrey, regardless, you killed the beast and fended off one of the strongest warriors in Westeros alone. You only spared the girl because of the love your father bears her. Father, the blonde woman claimed as she looked up at her son. Joffrey seemed to be about to refuse that statement, knowing that they weren't true. The beast was still alive, sent away by Naruto, and he was crushed by his brother. As for the girl, he could never have even laid a finger on her before his brother chopped it off. "Once Aerys Targaryen sat on the throne, and your father was a rebel and a traitor to the realm. One day you shall sit on it, and the truth shall be what you make it, regardless of what your brother says or does. You shall be the king," Cersei assured Joffrey, knowing that if Naruto sat on the throne, everything she had done would have been for naught. She could control Joffrey, temper him to be the perfect king that would start a dynasty of Lannisters on the Iron Throne. Naruto she couldn't sway. He had his ideals and would follow them even if they were foolish. Despite being a warrior, he sought peace to quell all fighting between houses, to forever end the Game of Thrones. An impossible task. "Do I have to marry the Stark girl? We already give the North too much power," he said, knowing that the North controlled the largest single piece of land compared to the other regions. However, it was also wild and nearly untamable, and how would reign them? And Cersei asked her eldest son, wondering how he would handle the problem if he was king. Joffrey took a second to think about it before coming up with an answer for his mother. "I would double their taxes and make them supply 10,000 soldiers for the royal army," he declared, earning an amused look from his mother. While it may have sounded like a good idea to have others provide troops for an army, she knew that it would never work. A royal army, and what if the North rebels, she asked, making the situation more complex, then I would send the royal army and take Winterfell with Naruto. I doubt that there's anything they have that could stop us. Then I would put in a proper warden. Uncle Kevin, maybe Joffrey responded to his mother's question as if it were simple enough. And you expect these 10,000 northerners to fight for you over their lords, for Naruto to betray the Starks? I am their king, they do not have a choice. Joffrey responded arrogantly, not seeing what was wrong with the suggestion. As king, they would have to do what he demanded of them, even if it meant invading their own homeland. Cersei chuckled a little bit. And even if your plan worked, once winter comes, not even the 7 combined could help you and your royal army. Joffrey, she said, watching her son. He was so ambitious, foolish at the moment, but ambitious. That may have been one of the few things that he shared with his brother. Of all things, a good king knows when to save his strength and when to crush his enemies. Do you agree? He asked, seemingly happy that his mother shared the same thought as him, that the Starks were their enemies, that the Starks are enemies. Cersei stood up and took a second to think, looking down before meeting her son's awaiting gaze. Everyone who isn't us is our enemy, she said, taking his hands and giving him a small smile. And Naruto? Joffrey asked, wondering what his mother thought. Cersei's smile fell when asked about her second son. It made her weary that Joffrey saw Naruto as a potential enemy. Despite them being brothers, Naruto had never made mention of wanting to steal the throne from Joffrey, but it seemed that just his power alone made him a threat to Joffrey. Naruto is your brother, he can be the greatest ally, but if you treat him like the enemy, he may just become it, she warned. Joffrey's face soured a bit, but nodded regardless. A few days later, Naruto was leaning against the rail of a balcony as he stared off over the city. With a sigh, he almost dreaded being back in King's Landing. There was such an awful air in the city, not just the smell, but the hidden game that the lords played. Very few people could truly be trusted. What do you want, Varys? Naruto said as the spider crawled out of the shadows. The monk-looking eunuch, from a glance one would dismiss him as harmless, but Naruto knew that he was among one of the most dangerous humans in the realm. The man could know just about anything. If anyone was within hearing distance, he was the ringleader of what was likely the largest web of spies in the world. Catelyn Stark has left King's Landing. Word has it that she believes that your uncle attempted to kill Bran, he told the Baratheon prince. A grim look appeared on Naruto's face when he heard that it didn't make any sense to him. His uncle would never do something so stupid, so meaningless. And who told her this? Naruto asked, looking over at Varys. Lord Baelish, my prince. An assassin was sent to Winterfell shortly after the king's party left and tried to kill the Stark boy in his bed. Lady Stark brought the weapon back here, and Lord Baelish told her that he had lost it to Tyrion last year. The eunuch explained to the young prince, who mulled over the information that he had been given. Naruto knew that the man wasn't lying. He knew better than to do so. All the lords in King's Landing knew better than to lie before him. Thanks to his past with Kurama, he could still sense negative intent, and that extended to lies. My uncle can take care of himself. I doubt that he will need much help making it back to King's Landing, he said, knowing that he couldn't leave the city at the moment. However, he needed to talk with Ned. He needed to, at the very least, understand what was going on. With that, he followed Ned's trail into Arya's room, seeing the older Stark step out. Ned, can we talk? He asked as he walked up to the man who raised him for 8 years. Of course, Naruto, he responded, curious as to what the son of his blood brother wanted with him. However, he was sure that Naruto had somehow caught wind of what had happened between him, his family, and Lord Baelish. It's about Tyrion, isn't it? Ned asked, wondering if Naruto had approached him because of it. Ned, he's innocent. Never once have I felt a bad feeling coming from Tyrion. He was set up. He had to have been the reincarnated shinobi, said, believing that his uncle couldn't do such a thing. It doesn't make sense. Why would Tyrion of all people want Bran dead? He said, putting a hand on the Stark patriarch's shoulder. Please believe me, Ned, if it's Lord Baelish who told you that, take it with a grain of salt. You can't trust him, he warned, hoping that the Stark would listen to him. Ned looks to the side. His wife had asked him to trust Peter. They had been friends growing up, and she held him in high esteem, but Naruto was like a son to him, someone who was just as much of a Stark as he was a Baratheon. I'll send a raven to Catelyn. I make no promises, but I will let her know that you doubt that Tyrion was the one, he told his surrogate son. He doubted that Cat would listen, but it may make her more open to other results. Thank you, Ned, Naruto said, letting out a sigh of relief before looking back at the door. So when is she gonna continue learning? You know, she would rather be a warrior than a lady, right? He asked, wondering where Ned stood on the subject. Of course, Catelyn disliked the idea of Arya becoming a fighter, but he wondered if Ned would let her continue her training. I was just thinking of a possible instructor for her. Besides, even if I said no, you teach her regardless, Ned pointed out, to which the Baratheon couldn't help but look away. Are you and Sansa still fighting? The Warden of the North asked, recalling that last time he checked, his forward ward and his daughter were not on the best of terms. Naruto sighed, complicated. She is wary of me because of what happened with Joffrey, but at the same time she is thankful that I saved Lady's life, he said, having left the direwolf in her care since Arriving in King's Landing, it was her companion, not as he only saved its life for her, he didn't really want the direwolf for himself. She really appreciated that, Ned said as he looked back at Arya's room. He was happy that one day his daughter would have a husband like Naruto, someone he could trust to do what was best for her. She's with her right now in their room, the Stark said, before giving Naruto a small smile. I don't know what she would have done if Lady got hurt. It's almost like those times back when the two of you were kids, you coming to her aid in your own way. That's in the past, Ned, Naruto said, waving off the mention of his past with Sansa. The two had been close growing up, with Sansa often chastising him for not acting like a prince, but still they got along well. He wouldn't deny that he had a crush on the girl when they were younger. She had been his first kiss. After all, not that Ned needed to know that, but things were different now. Both of them had changed as time had passed, and the Hands tournament had grown closer and closer, and with the influx of people into the city that brought with it a host of problems for them. Now the small council had gathered to discuss some of these issues. With Naruto present in his father's place, the second prince had decided to step in with his father's blessing to oversee the meetings. He didn't have much authority, but he was able to stop some loose use of funds. The prince groaned as it seemed that these people were cutting loose in the city, and the citizens had to suffer for it. There was a lot of blame to go around, and it seemed that no one wanted to truly take responsibility for Renly, casting blame on the commander. Lord Baelish, find the money to get 50 more watchmen. I'll provide 20 from my house, Ned said, knowing that something needed to be done. I can use my magic to clone myself. I can easily make around 10 clones at the moment. He proposed. Before he would have been able to make thousands, but that was then. And this was now. That way I can help back up anyone who needs it. The group looked over at the prince, but knew that they wouldn't be able to sway him. As you say, Prince, Naruto Littlefinger said, not really mind either way. All the inns are packed and every whore is bow-legged. This tournament may find itself being quite profitable, he said, has made a killing. With everything going on, discussing a few more minor matters, Ned closed off the meeting. Time skip, passing over the arc of two dueling horses. Khal Drogo's Khalasar had finally arrived at V's Dothrak, the closest thing to a capital city that the Dothraki had. Viserys had ridden off ahead of the red of the group after an argument with his sister Daenerys. Daenerys was a young woman who showed all the traits of a Targaryen, from their purple-colored eyes to their stark white hair. Looking over, she looked at Jorah Mormont, an exiled lord from Westeros that had joined them as a guard. If my brother was given an army of Dothraki, would he be able to take the Seven Kingdoms? She asked him, wondering if the experienced knight had any input on the matter. She had heard her brother go on and on about how he would take back the throne, but as of late she had been having some doubts. The Dothraki have never crossed the narrow sea. They fear any water that their horses can't drink. Jorah started to responded to the young Targaryen's question before being cut off by her. But if they did, she asked, wanting to get to the point. She knew that her new people had never crossed the sea. They saw the salt water as poison. They were a culture based on the horse, their deity being the stallion, and many of their customs being linked to horses. Seawater might as well not even have been water in their eyes. King Robert is fool enough to meet them in open combat, Jorah said, knowing that in pure open combat the armies of the Seven Kingdoms would be crushed. But the men advising him are different, he added, knowing that there were some brilliant men at Robert's fingertips if a war started. And you know these men, I fought beside them long ago, he said before a flash of fear crossed his face as he looked over at his ward. He felt unsure if he should even tell her about Robert's hidden weapon. However, he knew that he needed to. But they would not be your brother's main problem in taking back the Iron Throne, he said, catching her attention. What do you mean? If not Robert's advisors, then who could cause such an issue? Daenerys asked, almost dreading the answer that Jorah would give her. What could Robert have that could sway the battle more than those advising him in battle? Prince Naruto Baratheon, Robert's second son, Jorah told her, almost shaking at the name. He had heard tales of Robert's second son, each one terrified him more and more. The white-haired girl, however, just gave Jorah a confused look. The prince, she asked, her tone filled with doubt about the claim. He said, looking at the Khaleesi in the eyes. Prince Naruto was blessed by the gods with an unnatural amount of strength, capable of toppling even the greatest knights in the Seven Kingdoms. As a mere child, the Mountain, the Hound, Jaime Lannister, all have failed to best him in battle, but the biggest problem stems from his magic, Jorah pointed out, shocking Daenerys. He can use magic? She asked, wanting to make sure that she had heard Jorah correctly. With a grim nod, Jorah confirmed the fact that the second prince was capable of using magic, and I mean real magic. He can turn into anyone, teleport, make things appear and disappear out of thin air, and his punches are strong enough to shatter armor. Some even say that he can tell when you're lying to him without fail. More so, he has the love of the North. The small folk in the North adore Naruto as a hero, one who has protected them from threats for the 8 years he was up there as a child. While under the care of the Starks, he explained, knowing that the second prince could easily sway people away from the Targaryens and turn the tables. The young Khaleesi looked forward, thinking about everything that she had learned about the second prince. She never expected to find out that there was such a powerful person. But that doesn't mean invincible, she said, knowing that despite being so powerful she was sure that he could still be beaten. No, it does not, but he is someone that you will have to be wary of. He advised his main problem is that some view his powers as heresy against the 7 other view it as a blessing. Daenerys thought for a second on the issue. Would it be possible to sway him over to our side, she asked Yora, wondering if the prince could join her brother as an ally instead of an enemy. Naruto carried the trust of the people of the north. To make an enemy of him would be to make an enemy of the north, possibly, but unlikely, unless a major change came, Yora said, not thinking that anything short of the entire kingdom falling into total disarray would cause Naruto to betray his family like that. It was even possible that Naruto would want to take the Iron Throne for himself. Back in King's Landing, Naruto walked with Sansa into the throne room. Behind them was Lady, who had become almost a symbol of peace between the two of them. The Iron Throne, Naruto said almost bitterly, at the sight of the chair made of hundreds of swords melted together by dragon's fire. To think that Joffrey will one day sit on it, he muttered, hoping that his brother would be a competent king. Sansa looked over at Naruto for a second. Things between them had gotten a bit better since they left the north, him saving Lady from being killed being the main reason. She still disagreed with how he treated Joffrey and how he acted, but that one thing had salvaged their friendship. Joffrey will be a great king, Naruto, she said, defending her betrothed. Despite the incident, she was still infatuated with the firstborn prince. I don't know why you don't believe in him, he's your brother after all, Sansa pointed out, wishing that Naruto was a bit more supportive of Joffrey instead of always putting him down. I am supportive of him, I just don't think he would make a great king. Sansa, he can be cruel, sometimes too cruel of his good, he said before Lady came up to him and rubbed against his leg. The Baratheon smiled as he rubbed the top of the direwolf's head. You saw what happened back with that boy Sansa, he had him killed, he growled, a faint blue aura radiating from him. Sonda took a step back as she had seen that before. It only came out when Naruto was extremely upset about something. I agree that the situation was handled poorly, but Joffrey can learn, Naruto, he can change for the better. The redhead tried to argue. A heavy sigh escaped Naruto's lips. Looking at Sansa, he could almost see Sakura in her, how they chased after someone who for all intent and purposes may never see them the same way. I hope you're right, Sansa, I do, because if not, then who knows what may happen, he said. Looking back at the throne, he saw it as a symbol of oppression, a symbol of fear created by the Targaryens to impose their rule on the 7 kingdoms. The two stood in silence for a while before Sansa decided to speak. You know, Arya is training again, she said to the former shinobi. I saw, he said, smiling. She's got a great master who will teach how to fight well, Naruto told Sansa, believing in Sirio to teach Arya his art. Why are you jealous? The prince asked the redhead with a tiny smirk on his face. What would I be jealous of? She retorted fiercely. A soft chuckle escaped the lips of the second prince as he took a few steps forward. That one day Arya will likely be able to kick you pretty behind, he commented. At least I will be a proper lady, Sansa countered, not seeing the point of training in combat. When they were born to be high ladies, she would one day be the queen of the 7 kingdoms, and Arya would likely be the Lady of Casterly Rock, with Naruto as the Lord and Warden of the West. And who's to say that I want a proper lady as a wife? Naruto asked back in a slightly harsher tone. Sansa fell silent as she looked away. Naruto let out a deep breath as he knew that there was still some tension between them since they were younger. After their kiss, they grew a bit closer behind the Stark's back, but as Sansa started to strive to become more of a lady under Septa Mordain, the worse their relationship got. Sansa didn't say anything before turning and leaving, only for Naruto to grab her hand. What she bit back at him. I am sorry, he said softly, knowing that he had said something hurtful before becoming infatuated with Joffrey. She had wanted to one day marry Naruto. To her it was as if Naruto was saying that he wouldn't even have wanted her in the first place. Sansa, I did not mean it like that, he said as his grip loosened. You know how I felt about you, and you knew how I did, she muttered before letting out a deep breath. Looking back at him, the two met each other's eyes. Before I better go, Sansa said before the two parted ways. A few days later was the day of the joust. A massive crowd had gathered to watch the knights participate in the event. The royal family sat together with Naruto sitting beside Joffrey. Looking over, he saw Joffrey and Sansa exchange glances, Sansa offering his brother a smile before Joffrey turned away from her. Joff, would it kill you to be nice to the poor girl? Naruto asked as he saw Sansa's face fall when Joffrey didn't even give her the time of day. With the roll of his eyes, the eldest blonde Baratheon turned towards his brother. You know full well that I don't want to marry her, he said in a hushed tone so that their father wouldn't hear them. Joffrey was only marrying Sansa because his parents were telling him to. And to better solidify his position when he became the next king, while the girl was attractive, he didn't bear any real feelings for her. Standing up, he walked over to the two Stark girls and sat down beside them. Naruto, Arya exclaimed as the prince sat next to Sansa. Since Lady Mordain was next to Arya, I thought you were going to be participating, she asked, knowing that he had told the mountain that, before when they first arrived in King's Landing, I was going to, but my mother forbade me and didn't let my father argue about it otherwise. She claimed that it was too dangerous for me to join in and that I could get seriously hurt, he said before the two knights started to get ready. His eyes couldn't help but look at Sir Hugh, wondering where he had gotten such a set of armor despite only recently being knighted after the death of Jon Arryn. My fancy seeing you here, my prince, another voice said as Peter Baelish walked down the stands and greeted the group. Looking at Sansa, he offered her a kind smile. Lovers quarrel, he asked, having seen the unspoken exchange with Prince Joffrey. I'm sorry to I know you, Sansa asked, not knowing who this strange man was. Sansa, dear, this here is Lord Baelish. He's known as an old friend of the family, Petri said, cutting off the septa before she could fully introduce him to the daughter of his beloved. Looking at Sansa, he could almost see Catelyn and her, your mother and I have known each other for a long time, he told them, citing his long friendship with their mother. Why do they call you Littlefinger? Arya asked out loud, much to the indignation of her sister and Septa Mordain, who told Arya not to be so rude to the Lord. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't help but snicker at the question. Arya looked annoyed at how the two other women responded to her question, but Littlefinger didn't seem to mind as he explained to them just why he had gotten that nickname. Get on with it already, his father yelled out, getting impatient. While under the influence of his drinks, his mother had enough of it and left the area to go do who knows what. They watched as two knights bowed before they were dismissed to start the joust. He was surprised that Sir Hugh managed to fend off the first blow from the mountain. Most people would have been floored by that point, however Naruto didn't expect what happened next. His eyes widened as during the second round the mountain jabbed his lance into Sir Hugh's armor right by his neck. The crowd gasped as they saw Sir Hugh fall, a large splinter from Sir Grader's lance stabbed into his throat, blood squirting from his mouth as he gagged on his blood. Sansa's hand gripped his in need of support as both of the Stark children watched in frozen horror. Sansa, Arya, let's go, he said as he stood up, helping Sansa up to her feet and Arya following after them. The body had landed right in front of them and they had gotten a full view of the knight in his final moment before he was dragged off. As soon as got out of the crowd, Arya tackled Naruto and began to cry. That had been her first real experience seeing a dead body. It's okay, Arya, let it out, Naruto said, knowing that the first time seeing someone die was the worst, watching the life drain from them, let alone for some as young as these two. The next day of the tournament has arrived as Naruto was once again sitting with Joffrey and his father. Lord Stark had decided to join them this time and was sitting next to Sansa, and Arya had stayed back to practice her dance. He watched as Ser Loras rode up on his white mare, rose in hand, as he went up to Sansa and handed her the flower. Naruto rolled his eyes at how Sansa reacted to the long-haired knight. He seemed to be everything that Sansa thought that a knight should be, nothing like others were. However, one thing that Naruto noticed was how the mountain stallion reacted to being near Loras' horse. You clever bastard, Naruto muttered as he figured out the trick. Looking over, Renly seemed to have quite a bit of faith in Ser Loras winning, strange given that the man's opponent was Gregor Clegane of all people. Littlefinger, he called out, getting the man's attention along with the Starks. I bet 1,000 gold on Ser Loras. Care to take me up on the bet? He asked the master of coin. It was a decently large wager, but of course it would have a large return if he won, having been in a few tournaments before. The young prince has stockpiled a decent amount of gold. Littlefinger mulled over the offer. He knew that the mountain was far stronger than Loras could ever hope to be, but at the same time he knew that Loras wasn't playing honorably. Apologies, my prince, that is a bit too rich for me today, he responded, not feeling that the bet was worth the risk. As the joust began, it only took one round for Ser Loras to knock Gregor off his horse and onto the railing. The constant raging of his steed had made it far too difficult for him to remain balanced and strike properly. Everyone watched in shock as the massive knight was toppled over. Sandor, ready yourself, Naruto said to the younger brother of the mountain as he watched Gregor call for his sword from his squire. The crowd gasped as the massive man's sword cleaved deep into the poor stallion's neck, causing the horse to collapse on the floor before he charged towards Ser Loras, who had just bowed before Robert. With one swing, the Knight of the Flowers was knocked off his horse and onto his back. The crowd gasped as even Joffrey stood up to watch with confusion on his face. Let him be, Sandor growled as he rushed to defend Loras. After the second strike to the shield, the two brothers clashed before pushing each other away. Naruto gripped his sword as he watched the two stared at one another before they charged, their sword clanging against each other, the growls of the mountain filling the air. Joffrey looked back at his father, but before Robert could say anything, Naruto was already on the move. As swift as the air, Naruto came down towards the clashing brother faster than any knight, shocking those who had never seen the second prince in action. With a quick draw of his sword, a loud sound of metal being sliced filled the air. Two sword edges fell from the air and landed in the ground as Naruto stood between the two brothers with his sword drawn. Both the mountain and the hound's blades had been cut in half by the prince. With a single swing of his blade, anyone who looked closely would see a thin glow coating the Valerian steel weapon. Enough of this madness, Naruto yelled as he stood up and pointed his blade at Gregor. Get out before I finish the job I started years ago. Gregor, he threatened. Sandor had kneeled before Naruto as a showing that he relented. Gregor glared at the prince, but knew that even if he continued to fight he would lose. Growling, he stormed away. The king guards appeared to be ready to draw their sword against the giant, but an order from their king stopped them as they let Gregor pass. Naruto sheathed his blade as he helped Sandor up to his feet. Sir Loras came to them, thanking the hound for saving his life before raising the younger Clegane's hand into the air. Much the cheer of the crowd, Naruto laughed a bit as Sandor looked a little bashful as everyone cheered him on. Later, Naruto found himself following after Arya as she chased the cat down into the storerooms of the castle. Did you catch him yet? The prince asked before they arrived at a room filled with massive dragon skulls. Arya's face twisted into one of wonder and shock as she looked upon the remains of the once great beasts that the Targaryens used to conquer Westeros. Impressive, aren't they? Naruto asked as Arya touched the thong of one of the skulls. I doubt my father would have stood a chance if they had any of these back when he rebelled against the Targaryens, he said, walking up to her. How did they all die? She asked him, wondering how all these beasts could fall to the point of extinction while being so powerful. She was sure that just one could probably take on an army, more would be able to defeat any kingdom. I don't know, wasn't there? Naruto replied, but I heard that over time they got smaller, weaker, and died sooner. More likely than not they were forced to breed with each other and incest weakened them, the prince said before they heard talking coming from another corridor. He found one of the bastards already. He has the book. They heard Varys, Naruto muttered, recognizing the voice before pulling Arya with him into one of the skulls and out of sight. Stay quiet, Arya. If things turn for the worse, I'll protect you, he whispered to his betrothed. He was curious as to what Varys was talking about. What bastard? What book? The rest will soon come, and when he knows the truth, what will you do? Gods alone know. The fools tried to kill his son, he heard Varys say. What's worse, the botched it, the eunuch commented to his companion before locking the gate. The wolves and the lions will soon be at each other's throats. We'll be at war soon, my friend, Varys said, Naruto's eyes widening at what he was implying. Something was coming, and for whatever reason it may put the Starks and the Lannisters against one another, which meant that the crown would have to get involved too. What good is war now? We're not ready. If one hand can die, why not the other? The other hooded man commented as they passed the two of them. This one is different, and he is Prince Naruto guarding him. Any assassin will be done away in seconds if the prince is there to stop them, Varys said, knowing well the second prince could easily detect any intention to harm himself or those around him. It would extremely hard to do anything to Ned while he was there. We need more time. Khal Drogo will not attack until his son is born, the other voice said before the two walked up the stairs with them gone. Naruto and Arya got out of their hiding spot and looked at one another before sneaking over to the gate. It's locked, Arya said as he tried to pull on the lock, only for the prince to reach up and crush it with his bare hand. The young Stark couldn't help but let out a giggle as her best friend showed off his strength. Oh yeah, super strength, she said, getting a smirk from Naruto before they continued. We need to find Ned now, Naruto told Arya as he took her hand and led her through the dungeon under the castle. Eventually they ended up back on top, covered in dirt and dust. Rushing to Ned's room, they knocked on the door and waited for a response. Come in, Ned called out. His eyes widened when he saw Naruto and Arya walking into his office. Arya, where have you been? I had half my guard looking for you, Ned said, but got cut off by Naruto. I was with her, Ned. You know I would always keep Arya safe, Naruto said firmly. They said they were going to kill you, Arya blurted out, worried about the safety of her father here in King's Landing. Who did? Ned asked, confused as to what was going on. Lord Varys, the prince answered, getting a startled look from the Stark patriarch. He had just finished talking with Varys, where the man had given him a rather ominous message of not just the future of the king but about what happened to the previous hand of the king, and a warning about asking too many questions. He said you had already found the bastard and that you had some book. Ned looked over at the massive book that laid on his desk. I see, he muttered, knowing that he must be on the right trail to finding out what Lord Aaron had discovered, the secret that led him to his death. Anything else? Something about the wolves fighting the lions and a savage. Arya told her father something about a savage, she exclaimed, not sure what it meant. However, before they could continue, a knock was heard from the door. Sir, a member of the Night's Watch, Jory announced. Naruto, please take Arya back to her room. We will talk about this later, Ned said Before the man came in, the prince nodded and took Arya with him out of the room to let Ned handle his business. "Naruto, you won't let anything happen to father, right?" she asked, clenching his hand as she was worried that someone was out to hurt her family. "Ned is as much my family as they are your family, Arya, as are you. I promise you that I will protect him," he said, smiling down at her, earning him a grateful smile back. It was only a few hours later that Naruto saw Ned walking out of the Red Keep with Littlefinger, Jory, and 2 other guards. He had several clones scattered around the city to make sure that he caught anything that happened which could threaten the Stark. He had a bad feeling something was stirring, and he didn't like it one bit. When he passed his uncle before that, he seemed a bit off. Not wasting any more time, he leaped off the Red Keep at a high that would have killed a normal person, but instead landed without making a sound. Casting a quick jutsu, Naruto vanished from sight and began to trail after them. Seeing Ned go into Littlefinger's brothel, he followed the man who raised him and staying disguised under his invisibility jutsu while he watched as Ned met one of his siblings. It was strange meeting one of your father's bastards. He knew that Robert was never faithful to his mother, often sleeping with whores and tavern wenches over Cersei, but still to think that he would have a sibling. Several, if Littlefinger was to be believed. Just as Ned was leaving, he was about to reveal himself when Naruto sensed several others arriving outside. Looking out the balcony, he saw his uncle and 16 other Lannister guards gathered outside and encircling the entrance to the brothel to confront the Stark. Naruto jumped down just in case he needed to act quickly. The prince listened as the two talked. A frown appeared on his face as he heard that Tyrion had been captured by Catelyn, only for Ned to say that it was on his order. The damn bastard was too honorable to let his wife take the blame, but that was just who Ned was. The conversation quickly degraded as Jaime threatened to slice Ned open. Despite not disliking his uncles, he loved Ned more than he loved Jaime. "You kill me, your brother is a dead man," Ned replied, to which Jaime acknowledged that it was true, that if Ned died then so would Tyrion, ordering his men to capture Ned but to kill the rest of the guards. "Enough, Jaime!" Naruto yelled as he undid his cloak, appearing beside one of the guards and caught the spear, while a clone appeared and caught the other spear. Everyone around looked shocked to see the second prince appear out of thin air to stop the conflict before it spiraled out of control. "This is wrong, and you know it," the prince yelled at his uncle. "The Starks kidnap your own family and still you defend them?" Jaime asked, questioning which Naruto really held close, his blood family or the Starks. Naruto smirked as he drew his sword and pointed it at Jaime. "The Starks are my family. I like Tyrion, but I will not allow you to harm Ned, and if you dare to even try, then I hope you polished up your skills, because you'll have to get past me, Kingslayer. I don't want to fight your uncle, but don't force my hand," the black-haired warrior declared, willing to fight even Jaime, a match that he was sure that he could win. However, that didn't mean he could fight without worrying about the other 16. Jaime scowled, but knew that he couldn't risk a fight with his nephew. At that point he was liable to lose all his men and get injured himself. "I want my brother back, Stark," he said before motioning for his men to follow him, leaving the group of Northerners alone. A sigh of relief escaped Ned's lips as the conflicted seemed to be averted by Naruto's timely appearance. The Warden of the North smiled at the boy he raised. He was a bit conflicted about him pointing a sword at his own kin, but happy that Naruto felt so close to them. "Thank you, Naruto. I may have lost some good men had you not interfered," Ned said, looking at the 2 guards that the prince had saved. "Think nothing of it, Ned. We better hurry to talk to my father," Naruto said as he started to walk towards the Red Keep with Ned and Jory by his side. Arriving, they got to the throne room to find Robert with Cersei and Jaime talking to him. "Ned, what is this I hear about you starting problems by the brothel?" the king asked his longtime friend, confused as to what was going on. "Jaime has come up to him just moments ago and told him that he and his guards needed to quell an incident by one of Littlefinger's establishments caused by the Stark men." "He lies," Naruto declared, much to the surprise of the king and queen. "Ned was talking to Littlefinger about a problem he's noticed. Jaime and his men surrounded Ned and tried to kill his guards, but I stopped him," the second prince roared out his accusation against his uncle, who glared at Naruto. Cersei couldn't believe what she was hearing. Not that Jaime had attacked Ned, they planned that so that they could send a clear message to the Starks. No, what she was shocked by was the fact that Naruto, her own son, had spoken out and accused his own kin of a crime like that. "Naruto, I will not have you accusing your uncle of false charges," the queen yelled at her second son. "Shut up, woman," Robert yelled as he looked down at the assembled group. A groan escaped his lips as he wondered how he should settle this. On one hand, he owed half the bloody kingdom to his wife's family. They had provided much of the funding for everything that he had asked for. He owed them far too much. On the other hand, Ned was known for his impeccable honor, and Naruto was known for being honest, especially with him. The fact that the Starks were holding Tyrion Lannister just added fuel to the fire. "I want peace between your houses," Robert ordered as he looked at Jaime and Then at Ned, I want the two of you to settle your differences. I don't care how, as long as you're both alive. And Ned, tell your wife to give back the imp, he demanded, figuring that this way the conflict could just be avoided without anyone being made the real loser. Cersei scowled as it felt like the Starks were being let off easy. That's it, they kidnap my brother, insult my family's name, and you just tell them to make up. Maybe I should wear the armor, and you the dress. The queen spat back at her husband, who thought about slapping her across the face, but he was in front of not only his son but a bunch of other people. I feel that is fair, Mom. After all, Jaime did attack us and attempt to murder two of Ned's men. Or would you prefer if Jaime stood on trial for his attempt at the lives of the guards of the Warden of the North? The prince asked. If that is all, I will be leaving for Winterfell soon, Ned announced. Bah, enough of this, Robert said, before tossing something over towards Ned, who caught it to reveal that it was the handspin. You put that on and keep it on, Ned, and if you even dare take it off, I'll on it on Jaime for all I care, the king declared. Ned looked at the pin before looking back at Naruto, who nodded his head, knowing that for now King's Landing needed Ned.